but began with an apricot. I'm Tara Axford, course creator at Take Two, and I'd like to begin by acknowledging and paying my respects to the Gadigal people, the traditional custodians of the land I'm coming to you from today in this week's Friday Feature Artist. We were so pleased to welcome New Zealand-based abstract painter Nicola Bennett. Imagine beginning your creative process not in the studio, but in the kitchen, chopping, tasting, listening, layering. You're not thinking about art just yet, you're paying attention to flavour, balance, texture and story. With your tools in place and your senses still humming, the surface then becomes your next place of discovery. In this week's episode, we're stepping into the vibrant, sensory-rich world that Nicola has created, as we also celebrate the launch of Nicola's online course with Fibre Arts Take Two, Edible Abstraction. Nicola's work doesn't simply reference food, it's a response to it. Her paintings begin with ingredients like beetroot, aubergine or apricot, and evolve through conversations with chefs, growers and the act of cooking itself. Nicola moves from the kitchen to the canvas with intuition and joy, turning flavour into feeling and colour into art. For Nicola, painting is like cooking. It's about layers, contrast, harmony, and knowing when to stop. Her approach invites you to think beyond the brush and into your senses. As Nicola says, we eat with our eyes, and I found I was eating with my eyes with paint too. In this episode, Nicola shares how she overcame the pressure of perfection by reconnecting with pleasure. We'll talk about building a painting from the flavour up, why abstract art isn't about what you see but what you feel, and how even the humblest ingredients can hold creative magic. So if you've been craving a new way into abstract painting, one that swaps rules for recipes and theory for taste, you're in for a treat. Let's dive in as we welcome you wherever you are and say hello to Nicola Bennett.
Oh, hi.
There you are. Hi everyone, and welcome everyone, and please say hello in the chat and let us know where you're tuning in from. And thanks for joining today. And for those in the live stream, we can certainly share some of your questions with Nicola, so please pop them in the chat. Welcome, Nicola. I'm thrilled to be chatting with you today. How are you?
Hi, that was such a lovely intro. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Lovely to be here. Before we get started, I wanted to say a huge thank you to Fibre Arts Take Two for, we're at this amazing point of launching the course, and it's just been the most amazing journey so far with such an incredible team. Super impressed. And yeah, it's such an incredible community. Now it's kind of the next stage of the student community, if you're interested in the course. But if not, we're going to have a lovely chat today just about all things food, flavour and colour, aren't we?
Yes, and it is a big day, but we'll get to that later in a minute. And so, yes, just like to welcome everyone who's tuning in. Hi, Francie. Hi, Gail. Lovely.
Yes.
Petra. Everyone's coming in. We've got the New Zealand group as well. It's amazing. And people from the US. Carol, Kim, Christiane.
Wow.
Yes.
Hi.
So we did originally meet for Friday Feature Artist a couple of years ago. And so for those that may not be familiar with Nicola and her work, and if you want to hear more about how Nicola's painting journey began, you may want to pop back and listen to that. But Nicola, could you describe your abstract style to someone who hasn't seen it before so they can get a bit of an understanding about what it looks like and where you're coming from?
Oh, yeah. So, I work on large scale predominantly, and also some smaller works, the little cookbook size works behind me. And so I'm on this kind of quest to kind of combine colour and flavour. So food for me is always the starting point, always makes me feel really inspired and excited about colour and flavour. And so that's kind of where I start. And then I want my paintings to have this similar feeling that I have for an ingredient or a flavour. So that's what I'm searching for. So I think, and I'm still searching for. I'm still learning so much. But I suppose you could describe my style as kind of abstract expressionist, and what I'm trying to create are lots of really rich layers, and so the viewer can kind of get lost in all the texture and color and drawn in, and hopefully have their senses kind of fired up in a similar way that they might look at some delicious thing in a food magazine, you know, this kind of, oh, I want to get closer to it and experience it. So that's that's kind of how my work is. That how I work. Is that a good little synopsis? I don't know. It's always hard to describe your own work in a short paragraph.
Yeah, and we can see some of it behind you. And I think, I mean, it does definitely work as an abstract painting in its own right. And often, people will find it difficult to understand abstract. Like sometimes, I guess, people think of it as more of a decorative kind of, gestural kind of thing, and don't always perhaps realize that there can be meaning behind, and that's different to every kind of artist, whether that's sort of some abstracted landscape or whatever. But I think as we know more about your work, then suddenly you do realize that connection between the food and that lusciousness of whether it's the oil or all of those sort of connections to the actual food that you're observing. So since you've had a busy year, not only as we've kind of alluded to that you've been putting together the course, but last month you attended the Auckland Art Fair. What was that like? Do people know you as the food artist, or do they ask you what inspires your work?
Yeah, well, I stayed for the whole 4 days, and I was trying to kind of eavesdrop on what people were thinking of the body of work. And I was lucky in that I kind of had two walls of the stall for the first kind of day and a half. So I was just so lucky. It was almost like a little mini solo show. And it was only my second time there, so I definitely had a slight imposter syndrome feeling, because there are 35 galleries and 150 artists, and so I did feel a little bit like that, but then not so much as the year before. And I know that the imposter syndrome comes when I'm out my comfort zone, and I think it's an important feeling to have now and again, because it shows that you're pushing forward. So I kind of welcome that imposter syndrome these days. And I really enjoyed it. Yeah, so it was a good response. Everything sold, and I had some really lovely conversations. And it was nice to be part of that artist community. I had some lovely chats with collectors and other artists, and it's kind of a real immersion into all things, contemporary art.
Yeah,
It's very
yeah. And I'm just going to show one of the images, because it's really wonderful to see the scale of the work. We just sort of briefly mentioned that, you often begin with that cookbook size, but then you've got these large scale pieces here in this gallery setting. So that larger green one, do you remember offhand, is that how large was that?
3 meters by 1.2. Yeah, so I don't know what that is in inches. American, it's hard to convert, but so it is big, and it was inspired by asparagus when it was in season here, because you can actually pick wild asparagus in Alex, which is really exciting, and I loved that. So pretty much every time I walked my dog, I was picking a bunch of wild asparagus for a few weeks. And so that painting and a couple of others came out of the asparagus experience. And then the others, 180 by 120, those other large ones on the left. So I love working big. I love the challenge of it. It's really fun.
Mm-hmm. And that is one of the intriguing things, that taking a humble ingredient and something so small and then converting it to something way beyond that. So today, for those listening live, it is Friday the 13th, which we're going to take as a lucky day. And it is also the launch of your course, Edible Abstraction. What was it like preparing to share your creative process in this online format?
Oh, well, it was a lot of work in the months leading up. And I had to be really organized, which potentially isn't my forte. So It was a lot of work, but it was really good for me, and I found that my own work grew during that process. And as I started to kind of prepare, how can I teach these principles of art, based around food and flavour, and make it really exciting for people? So I absolutely loved the experience in the end, and my work definitely grew. Like when I was doing the charcoal module on value, when they say if you want to learn something, teach it. And I was like, wow, I forgot how much I love charcoal, when you start to kind of teach it like that. And I really enjoyed it. And so now it kind of feels like, and then I love the experience actually of you guys being here and filming, and just gorgeous people, and it was a really fun experience. But now it feels like I've just been endlessly cooking and no one's tried it. So I feel this kind of anti-climax almost, that I'm just so desperate for people to have a go and see if they enjoy it and see if I can help them.
Yeah, I love that. And I was lucky enough to be in that very space that you are now and watch you. So I'm actually going to play the video that we've put together, Meet Your Tutor, because so many things in that explain more about you and your process. And plus, for the people joining live, we can actually see what it is that we're talking about. So I'm excited to share that now.
Okay.
Come on.
I'm so passionate about flavour and colour that cooking isn't enough. It gets consumed and then it's gone, and I haven't got this tangible object to remember. But with painting, I can transfer all that passion and love I had for the ingredient into something that's tangible, that not only brings me pleasure, but can bring somebody else pleasure. I'm Nicola Bennett. I'm an abstract painter inspired by food and flavour. I live in Alexandra in Central Otago of New Zealand. I love Central Otago because there's amazing produce, the weather's incredible. I love to connect with the local growers around here. And what I love about doing this is I can then get all their passion for that ingredient that they're growing. And then when that's combined with my own passion, I've got then more energy to bring to the painting. So my very best work is the work where I've met the grower and we've really talked about their love of the ingredients. Colour and flavour have so much in common. We're eating with our eyes all the time, and I found that I was eating with my eyes with paint as well. So I get super excited by flavour. It gives me this intense feeling. And so I want to feel that way about my painting. I want it to excite me and give me this real pleasure of kind of eating with the eyes. I grew up with a mother that loved cooking. It was her love language. We'd sit and have these amazing Sunday lunches. And I kind of learnt early on that by cooking you could make people happy. My journey with food and painting started when I did my master's about 16 years ago. And they're asking you, what is it that lights you up? What are you really interested in? And it always kept coming back to food. And so that's when I kind of started connecting the senses. I think I'm most proud that I made this dream into my reality, into my full-time job. And that wasn't always easy, but something that I just completely dedicate myself to. The highlights would be sending work to Europe or to connecting with a collector that brings me in and said, I really love the painting, and it brings, happiness and pleasure into that family home. And that's super satisfying. If you can make a piece of work that makes somebody else happy, that's a huge achievement. And I relate that back always to cooking. If I can make a meal that makes my family happy, I've achieved something. I think the most frustrating thing when you're developing your art practice is wanting to get to the end, and you're thinking about this finished painting. And the process is where the magic happens. And so you just naturally get to where you're meant to go. You let the painting do its thing. I would encourage you to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because it is just part of the process, and just have heaps of fun along the way and get into that flow state and learn as much as you possibly can. Such a
fabulous. So great to see. And so the exciting today is that people can head over to fiberartstake2.com and enrol in Edible Abstraction from today. But I love the bit about preparing food and then it's gone, and transforming that passion into something else. But the realization that you had that it was food that lights you up, and we saw some of those, you preparing food there. So the color and flavor module happens to be like the main course of the course, and it's got so much packed in there. I love how the ingredient, how you can make that the star of the painting. Can you tell us, in that bit that we saw then, there was a lot of apricots featured. Tell us a little bit more about how apricots started appearing in your life and your work.
Oh, well, Central Otago is known for the apricots and a special variety called Moorpark. And when I've only lived down here for about a year and a half. And so we arrived in summer and we visited this orchard, and these really lovely people that own the orchard showed me round. And I just was in heaven, really, because, rarely you get to pick some fruit that's warm and ripe off the tree. I'd only ever really had apricots from the supermarket that were, being refrigerated and cold and personalityless. And here were these apricots so full of personality from these people that grew them with so much passion. And so then I, picked some apricots, took them home and made this roasted amaretto and almond cheesecake, and took them a slice the next day and said, hey, thanks so much for your time. And they were like, oh my gosh, thank you. And they gave me a crate of apricots. And then they said, tell you what, if you make me a whole cheesecake, you can have two crates. So anyway, we went back and forth like that. And in the end, I had to say, stop. And really lovely, kind people. So now I have the relationship that I can pick as many apricots as I like, as long as I keep them in cheesecake. So that's kind of what we do now. But it's amazing. And so I then had all their passion and my own to come back and paint about apricots. And it wasn't necessarily just about the color of apricots, and that kind of how that transfers to taste. It is everything, all their energy and passion. And I want to get that feeling into the painting as well. So sometimes I feel a little bit intimidated that I've got all these feelings to get into a painting, and how is the painting ever going to do it? But, generally it does in the end. But, and I like that it doesn't have to be about apricots for somebody else, then that's the joy of abstract art, is it can be anything for anyone. But for me, they're almost like these little diary entries of the experiences I had with that ingredient. So generally I paint all seasonally with whatever ingredient is in season. And then when I look at that painting, I was like, oh, I remember that was when I made the cheesecake, or for the asparagus. I kind of think about picking them with my really close friend here with our dogs, and making this burnt lemon and brown butter and burnt lemon roasted asparagus on labneh, and just sharing that with my family, and all those experiences. When I look at the painting, I'm like, oh yeah, that was that little diary entry of that lovely time I had.
Yeah, I love that. And it's also one of the, really sort of fascinating things that you've managed to do, which I think is so unique to you. It's not like you've put apricots in a bowl and styled them and then you're doing this still life. You're responding to them. And then, it doesn't matter if the painting, the person in the end stands in front of it and doesn't see the apricot. It's not about that. It's just about kind of that way in of that, finding that starting point, I guess, which was for me was so fascinating to watch how you developed that. I just wanted to share. Yes, Petra, your cooking looks as amazing as your painting. Of your
Thank
passion.
you. I'm no chef, but I'm not a really creative cook. Like, I don't really make many things up, but I have a lot of cookbooks. And I really appreciate that those people that have trained to be a chef are extremely talented, and that's their thing. And so I love to cook, but I'm actually not a very creative chef.
Oh, the cheesecake was pretty good. And also I just wanted to kind of clear up, like, we see you a lot there with all that wonderful, cornucopia of produce and all that colour, and it's amazing, but you're not actually teaching us how to make a pavlova or a cheesecake in the course, are you?
No, there's some shared recipes of the things that I cook within the course, but no, it's about finding the recipes that you love, that bring you joy, and trying to get them as being a starting point for you. But it doesn't necessarily even have to be about that. You know, if you're not a cook or you don't really associate with food and flavor, it's really just for me, it's kind of edible nature, really. So yeah, it could be anything in nature, really, and that's the thing. It's what lights you up.
Yeah, yeah. And it is a good opportunity. I know myself in the last few years as things become more searchable online, you kind of type into the search engine to find recipes, but now is the chance to go back to the bookshelf and dust off the cookbooks and reacquaint yourself with, some of those favorite recipes, because now through Edible Abstraction, we can find out how those recipe books can be the inspiration for the beginning of abstraction.
Yeah.
And in that video there before, we saw a bit of Otago and Cromwell, and I just wanted to share from Jem. Yes, she says they lived there too, and it was beautiful. Best apricots, and love your
Yeah.
work.
Oh, thank you.
Fabulous. So going back to that ingredients, I'm just going to so maybe, I don't know if this is if you're working on this now, but I've just got an image here of a charcoal drawing. And can you describe what it is that we're looking at?
Oh, yeah. So I am working with those at the moment. They are little enoki mushrooms. And on the far right, you can see oyster mushrooms and lion's mane. So I've got this commission for a restaurant in Queenstown, near me, and it was just the coolest experience. So I went over there and they cooked all these things for me to choose to respond to. And so all these dishes coming out, these desserts and savory dishes, and I could choose this favorite dish to respond to. So I end up choosing this pumpkin, oyster mushroom, and hazelnut dish, which was incredible. And he used hazelnut butter instead of parmesan because it was kind of like a risotto, just to create that umami.
Ooh.
It was insanely delicious. And he pickled the pumpkin on top and then also cooked it within the dish. Oh, and then he talked really passionately about it, and it was amazing. So then I had that amazing experience, and then I wanted to meet the growers of the ingredients. So then the following week, I went to it's called Remarkable Fungi, and these really cool young guys showed me around this mushroom kind of production place where they grew all those mushrooms you could see. And it was just great. And I got to kind of take on all their passion and knowledge for mushrooms. And they sent me home with a big box of mushrooms to cook for my family. And then I then drew some as well, a lot. So I then cooked them myself and then brought them into the studio and started to do some kind of blind drawing, all the things that I teach within the course, and tactile drawing. And that little drawing you saw was just a little study which I teach in the course of, lots of different kind of mark making, and then finding a composition and honing in on that and really concentrating on value and different qualities of line. Yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's so fascinating. And because, as we've kind of mentioned, the paintings don't literally represent food, they respond to it. And trying to stay focused on expressing that feeling rather than form must be a real challenge. But it sounds like, you've certainly got some techniques kind of in your playbook of how you keep that focus going, I guess. And sorry, I'm just so I'm excited that we've got so much going on here.
Yeah, well, and I meant to say that's the painting behind me. So you can see some of those kind of pumpkiny mushroom colours and forms coming through. Or maybe I'll turn it a little bit so you see the whole thing. So that's it, which I'm nearly there, I think. So I'm just living with it for a little while and seeing if it needs a little bit more of something to be balanced, but very nearly there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that too, that, your sense of mark making makes sense. Like, it's not just sort of this random sort of scribbles and gestures. I mean, it has that energy and it has that gestural, but it's way beyond, some other abstract work that I've seen that just becomes, kind of like a decorative, pretty painting. There's so much going on in the work, and being able to sit with it in a room and just keep peering into it. When I was in your studio, that was one of the joys of sitting on that sofa and just constantly just finding something new in your work. So what part of the course are you excited for students to see or try for themselves?
Or probably the drawing part, because I think people have a bit of like hang-ups about drawing, because school wasn't really that much fun with drawing, because mostly we had to do, representational drawing. Like we had to make the horse look like the front of Horse magazine, and if you couldn't do that, then you weren't a good drawer. And drawing is so much more than that. And so we don't do any of that kind of drawing in the course. We do, really experimental kind of drawing. So tactile drawing and blind drawing. And that's all about, really seeing what you're drawing and feeling it and responding to that and letting your hands kind of communicate to one another. And, that process is so relaxing. And even if I'm having a busy day and I go and do a tactile drawing, I'm like immediately brought into the present. I'm not a very good meditator, but I imagine that that's the feeling that you get. You just are in the present moment, and you get that lovely feeling of being in the flow state. So I'm hoping that people just really enjoy that, and then contact me, go, I felt so relaxed when I did the tactile drawing. Yeah, so that, and I think, taking some of the fear away of colour mixing, because I used to feel like that about colour. I used to try and, get the exact tube of paint with the exact colour that I needed, and I didn't have the confidence to mix colour because I didn't know how to. And so I'm hoping I can take that fear away for people too, and that they can actually feel excited by colour and really kind of a bit more confident about mixing colour, and and just learning through play without any kind of pressure.
Yeah. And Carol is excited about the drawing, so
Great.
yes. Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that certainly, having been a bit more familiar with your work and then being able to watch you as the course was being filmed, is your passion and your absolute joy and excitement. It is contagious. And I've heard you say quite a few times, it is so relaxing, just have fun. And, I think, but really though, really? Is that... But yeah, that's the thing. Just watching you do want to try it. So that is so good to watch. So the starting point or the finish point of an abstract painting is not always understood. So at this point, I'd like to just hear or just share with everyone a little bit more about this course, and then we can discuss a little bit more about some of the techniques that you share. So let's just watch it now.
This course is really about abstraction in a new way, responding to colour and flavour, providing an access into abstract painting that is sensory and delicious and fun. This course is for someone that has been interested in abstraction, but really just been hesitant about knowing how or why or what, or even where to start. And by kind of taking that fear away of abstraction and going, let's just have some fun through food and colour and flavour, then it becomes not just easy, but accessible and exciting and delicious. If you've got an established art practice, then this course is still brilliant for you, because you're going to learn some different techniques that you might not have known. The reason I might do a course is because I want something to really fire me up and inject some more kind of energy into my work. So I look forward to welcoming both beginner and experienced painters into the course. Have you ever walked into an art shop and just been so overwhelmed with the amount of materials? So I start this course by showing the materials that I use within my practice, and you'll be surprised at how simple they are. Move on from the materials into preparing a surface with gesso. Gesso is a big part of my practice. It's a chance for you to get painterly and get messy and have some fun. I teach some fabulous techniques on how to layer gesso. What that does is it takes away the white scariness of a canvas or a paper, and then you're layering it on this wood and it drips down the side like icing on a cake. You're already kind of engaging your senses just at this very beginning stage of preparing a surface. We're going to go through value with the beautiful medium of charcoal. Never underestimate the value of using black and white to really teach yourself composition and value and mark making and texture. and then I'm going to take you on a colour journey, like a sensory journey. So hopefully you'll never look at your cookbooks in the same way again. You'll be looking at them in terms of colour palettes and colour mapping and composition. Flavour leads everything I do. It's the thing that super excites me. So I want to share that excitement with you and show how it relates to colour. So the colour and flavour module is the tastiest part of the course. It's the bit where we really kind of fire up our senses. And so that module is really in depth, and I'm showing you how you can get beautiful colours just with a very limited colour palette. One of the things I teach in the course is glazing, and glazing is this one technique that will give you a shortcut in getting depth and richness into your work. And this is the technique that really elevated my artwork, and I can't wait to share it with you. There's a strong drawing element because I think drawing is that window into abstract painting. The power of mark making is huge. It takes away this kind of judgment of, is it right? Is it wrong? It can be something that's uniquely yours, and that's what's so exciting about it. So throughout the course, I'm going to be encouraging you to do all kinds of expressive drawing. We're going to do blind contour drawing and tactile drawing. That kind of drawing is easy, it's satisfying, it's fun. One thing we're going to work on in the course is building your confidence, because when you're in the right headspace, you're going to make much better work. It really is a process that evolves, and you've really just got to stay positive and believe in yourself, that you just want to keep playing and experimenting, and that you will get there in the end. So I hope by the end of this course I've sparked this journey into abstraction through flavour, and it's something that you really want to develop and take further. So I really hope you can join me on Edible Abstraction for a journey through the sensory pleasure of food, with all the added benefit of learning lots of different techniques of ways to get depth and richness into your work.
Wow, so fabulous to see. And so I've got lots of questions coming in, which I'll get to. But also, for those that are perhaps listening to this currently, please head over to fiberartstake2.com or the show notes so you can get a sense of what we were just watching. Now, gesso. I knew before filming that this was one of your favourite areas, but I didn't quite realise what a game changer that this can be in abstract painting. And so I can't wait to share how you work with gesso with your students. What are you looking forward to as people join the course?
Yeah, well, that gesso module is exciting, and what's lovely about it is that you, as I said, you can get kind of painterly before you even start painting. And I'm still learning about gesso, and I feel like I've still got a long way to go to play and really let it teach me what it's got to teach me. But it's a way of kind of getting some layers and some beautiful mark making to respond to before you start painting. So partly takes away that scary white surface, and also it's just so, it always amazes me every time I do it, you know, these techniques that I use, and it's an element of surprise and curiosity and wonder, and you're not forcing your way for it to do a certain thing. It just surprises you, and therefore you're feeling like you're playing and you're in that lovely creative zone before you start painting. And so I think it's just a fabulous way to start. And sometimes I love it so much that I let some of those gesso layers show through in the final work. So behind me, that painting, some of those black and white layers from the very beginning are still evident. And so that's kind of lovely because it can show the whole process and even those beginning stages. And so, yeah, I use really good quality gesso. So in the course I show store-bought gesso and homemade gesso and how they behave. And I'm looking forward to seeing what students do with gesso themselves, because I'm sure that they will take it into much more exciting places than I've taken it. And so this is the cool thing about it. There's so many things that you can do, and I'm sure that people are going to do some really interesting things. So I can't wait for them to share those with me in the community group.
Yeah. And we kind of do get a bit of a sense of, in some of those videos or that we've been sharing, that textural aspect. But it wasn't until I saw you actually do those techniques that I'm like, wow, that looks good already. And so I completely understand how it does get rid of that white surface. But it's not just about painting a ground, you know, traditionally in sense of surface with the colour. It's what you do with it next where you kind of go, yeah, like I've already got now something to respond to. So I just wanted to share that, yes, Vanessa also agrees that this sounds so inviting, and Elizabeth is looking forward to this.
I'm looking
Now,
forward to seeing you in there.
yeah, we had some questions come in from Instagram, and color theory and color mixing is also a really great part of the course. And in some of those videos that we've been looking at, I love that we've seen you color match by painting the actual produce. We saw you match that sort of apricot color on the actual apricot, or the, that avocado green on the avocado. So Tanya would like to know, what do you think is needed to make a great green?
Oh, well, I have a favourite green, which is sap green, but of course you can make green with blue and yellow. So I encourage people to kind of, just have those basic primaries with a couple of extras, because you can make so many paints, so many colours just from those. But I think you can also make a beautiful green from black and yellow. So there are different ways to make green. And generally speaking, I don't use a green straight from the tube, even though I love sap green. I'll mix it with another kind of colour. But I feel my colours just through I try it and I go, do I like that? And does it need a bit more yellow? So I try and use, I don't use much black. So I make my own black and with primaries. And so, so my response to that would be, you can make green or you can buy green, but I would rarely use just a green straight from the tube, because I like to harmonise my colours, which I can teach you within the course. So a very long answer to that, but you don't need to buy heaps of paints, is also what I'm trying to say, is that you can easily make a beautiful green.
Yeah. I love that. I love how I'm sitting here talking to you and we're talking about how to make green. Like, how could life get any better than this? So we also have a question. Do you have a natural affinity with colour, or have you studied theory and science of the colour wheel?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I understand the colour wheel. I know the primaries and secondaries and complementaries and how to harmonise colours. I understand it, but I rarely would get it out and use it. So, and I certainly haven't studied colour theory. So it's more about a feeling for me. So if I'm searching for a colour palette, I will often look in a cookbook, because they have the most beautiful compositions. And the way of finding a colour palette that appeals to you is really just to look and see how excited you feel about a colour combination. And that is trying to tell you something to work within those colours. So it's definitely a felt thing for me. And just through making a lot of work over the years, like a hell of a lot of work in the beginning, I made a lot of work and a lot of it was terrible, but it taught me so much. And this is it. You need to make a lot of work to understand what you love and to really understand colours. And colours rarely work in isolation. We respond to them because they're next to another colour. And I think, you think about flavour, one flavour by itself isn't so exciting, but once you start layering flavour, that's when we really get very excited by them, because they complement one another. And so I think there's so much to learn about colour, but it's a felt thing. And I think colour has a weight and a personality. And I'm still learning about colour. Every single painting teaches me so much about colour, and I'm never trying to reproduce a painting, a colour combination that I've used before. I'm always trying to surprise myself, and I want colour to teach me something that it hasn't before. So hopefully that was a long answer to that question, but yeah.
And I love how it works both ways, like that circular of how then the painting takes you back to that experience and that memory. So it does become that sensory thing of perhaps connecting back to that original source and, the smell and the taste by looking at your own painting, which, hopefully students will be able to have that experience as well. So I have another question from Mary. Hi, Nicola. Really like your work. How you express your passion for food. Do you plot your composition in neutral colours before adding colour? or do you let the balance come through as the painting progresses?
Yeah, another good question. I don't plan anything. So I let the painting evolve by itself and tell me what to do. So I start with those gesso layers and then I just let it evolve. And sometimes the color palette can change completely, which happened in a large work that I was working on just recently. So I have to just let it do its thing and evolve. So there's definitely no planning. It's a real felt thing and an experimental, playful kind of search for this feeling. Yeah.
And also
sorry, interrupting you such late. I had this section on the painting behind me I was working on the other day, and it just worked so beautifully, this one section, and I got all excited about it, and my mouth started watering, and I'm like, this is ridiculous, I'm not going to eat it. But this is the feeling that color gives me. It is a real like a bodily response, and that's kind of how I feel about color, is that it can spark up even my sense of taste. That's a little bit odd, I know.
I love that. Makes sense. And I had this question come in as well, which probably you might have just answered then, of how does a student know that something works or doesn't work? Is it intuitive, or do they have to have a plan? How do you know when a painting is complete?
There's a couple of questions in there. So you know if it's working if it feels right, if it's really speaking to you and you get excited by it. But if it's not creating that feeling within you, that means that you haven't finished yet. And so I hear a lot of artists say, I've overworked it and I should have stopped before. And I don't really agree with that. I feel like mostly people haven't gone far enough. And so I feel like if you want to carry on a piece, that's because it's not good enough for you. It's because you want to push it further. And then you get to a point where it's difficult and you think that you've gone too far and that you've ruined it, when actually you're just sitting in the difficult stage and you needed to get to that stage. And then you just need to go just that step further to resolve it. And that's when even your most ugliest painting can often be the best, because it's been through that struggle. And so I would say, that it's not finished until you feel like there's like absolutely nothing you could do to it that would make it better. So that's the kind of feeling that I'm going for. And I want it to kind of be like, I can eat it with the eyes. I'm like, oh yeah, that's done. There's nothing that it actually needs, and no more seasoning or no more, flavor. It's just right. And it's definitely a feeling. So if you're not feeling that feeling, it's because you've not gone far enough yet.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And that trust. And I heard you say in one of those videos before, or something that you've shared, like that feeling of getting used to being uncomfortable, like be comfortable with being uncomfortable. That must be kind of like a leap of faith. So for many creatives that have dabbled or perhaps got stuck or stale, what would you say helped you build confidence?
Well, you make a lot of work, and you kind of resolve your own painting in the end. But I think everyone can make work that they love. It's just a practice thing, and I think it's really important to know that every artist, no matter where they are in their career, has that feeling. Like every painting for an artist, I'm sure. You ask every artist that is mid-career or whatever, if you ask them, do you ever have that difficult feeling, they 100% say yes, because I feel like painting isn't something that you just learn and you master and you've got it. It's a forever learning thing. And so, I certainly haven't arrived. I've got so much more to learn. And that's the joy of painting. That's what makes it so addictive, is you'd never really just get it and learn it and it's fine. It's a continual growth. But it does get easier in the confidence in knowing that you can create something that you will love. Like, I know that I'll get there eventually. I don't doubt that I'll get there, but I also know that I will experience a difficult feeling where I don't really know what to do, but I need to sit with it for a time and go until the painting says, oh, okay, it needs this. And I let it kind of, my intuition tell me what to do. And what's really important is to make that action straight away. So for example, if I think it definitely needs yellow there, I'll do it straight away that I think about it and not let my thinking brain come in and say, but haven't you just used yellow? You know, so it's really important not to overthink things and just to take action with a idea and just play and experiment. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, then just keep playing and experimenting. And you will find sections that you love and you'll learn from that, because they're telling you what your style is or what you're enjoying. And it's really important to follow and to pay attention to what you like.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely getting started, and then there's doing the work. Now, I just wanted to share that Carol Anna has been waiting a long time for the course, and she's registered, so that's so great. And Jenny had never thought of working, that she'd be interested in abstract working, but she's excited. And I think that's the thing, that, you know, it doesn't, before, like in my experience, you know, that idea of doing abstract in response to a landscape, you know, sometimes you feel like you've got to go to these exotic places or, you know, walk these expansive things. But what you've done is like turn the humble ingredients, or I just have to walk to my kitchen or flip through a book, and then suddenly I've got all this inspiration in front of me. So I find that really exciting as well. But I've got another question from Percy. Do you use acrylics primarily, or oil and acrylics?
Yeah, I use both. So I use acrylic on my underpainting, and then I use oil for my final layer. So yeah, I like acrylic because they're quick and they dry fast, and you know you can get some great techniques. But it's the oil that I love to finish with, because that creates that translucency and richness and this kind of buttery, edible richness. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And also, Cindy is getting supplies together. Is there any particular colours that you'd recommend in the oil sticks, which I know that you love and they do look beautiful to work with? They can be expensive. Yeah. So, yeah, if someone was just going to buy one or two, do you have a suggestion of what colour to get?
Yeah, well, the ones my go-to are probably sap green, and then like a warmer colour like a brown pink, or an unbleached titanium white would be lovely. So not a primary. I would suggest some kind of rich, saturated, foodie colour. So maybe an orange or a brown or a green, some kind of lovely foodie colour, and you can't go wrong. And just get a couple to play, and you know you can draw with them like a drawing instrument, or you can blur the line and make them painterly. They are so versatile, and they're really fun, and they blur the line between drawing and painting, which is what I love about them.
Yeah, it is great being able to use different materials in different ways and then seeing it all come together. So you have a comment here that love your paintings, love the colour too. Will the course be available next year? So I'll just answer that, Lauren, that if you're listening to this in the future and you go to fiberartstake2.com website and the course isn't available to enrol in, please register your interest and join the wait list, because there's bonuses and things, and you'll be getting all the juicy behind the scenes stuff as well. So you'll be, you'll know when the course is available again. But from Friday the 13th, today is a lucky day, because the cart is open now, so it's ready to be enrolled in. I had another question about working in oil and perhaps the reluctance, because it can take a bit to dry. Do you have any response to, oil versus acrylics, or what would your answer be to that?
Well, it obviously depends where you live. So if you're in a humid environment, they're going to take a little bit longer to dry. But we're not working with them in an impasto thick way. We're working with them in kind of thin glazed layers. And so mine dry pretty quickly because I'm in a really dry environment. And I also suggest adding a medium, which helps them dry much quicker. So that's the Michael Harding Daymar kind of mix, which is called Miracle Medium. But you can also find other ones, if you can't get hold of the Michael Harding Miracle Medium. And for me, that means that my oil is going to be touch dry in a couple of weeks, which is fine. So I don't varnish them anymore. I use like a spray called B72 by Schminkel when they go off to the gallery. But yeah, I think a couple of weeks is fine for me. And the acrylics do dry really quickly. And, you know, if oils aren't your thing, then acrylics are totally fine as well. And you can use some kind of medium to make them more translucent and act like oils. And I have recommended Golden Open in the course because they act the most like oils of any of the acrylics. And so if you're wanting those acrylic qualities, but you're not wanting to either invest in oils or the dry time, then just stick with Golden Open because they do behave really beautifully, and you can add water to them to make them translucent, or you can use some mediums, which I recommend as well. So yeah, that would be my answer to that.
Mm-hmm. And also we see in the course that, you know, you're working on several at once, and I love that you've started with those cookbook size works, which seems such a lovely thing to do, and, you know, be able to have several things going at once. But also I know that you do in the course work in acrylics kind of, you know, under the oils, but then also on their own as well. So related to that, Marta had a question about the advantages of using oils or acrylics, the safety and environmental issues of these paints. What are your thoughts on solvents or waterable mixable oil paints? How do they?
I don't use any solvents. So some people use terps to loosen oil paint or to clean their brushes. I don't ever use it. I use just a nice kind of soap brush cleaner when I clean my oils off. I get rid of most of it on a bit of tissue, and then I soap them. So I have several different paintbrushes on the go at the same time. So I'm not even washing paintbrushes in between. So I only wash my brushes at the end of the day, and I don't use any solvents. And so I feel like there isn't really any kind of safety issue for me. Yeah. So I think that using both is absolutely fine.
Yeah, it's great to have some of those technical questions, and I hope we've answered those to people. Now, I was wondering, so what gets you in the zone? Do you paint first or cook first?
Oh, well, yeah, I have to have the feeling for the ingredients. And so it's so important to have that feeling. So yeah, I do. I cook a lot, and I also visit growers and chefs, anything to kind of get me feeling excited. And if I get a kind of a flat stage within the painting, I either recook or just open that cookbook, or it's just that cooking language, or trying something, get my flavors spiced up. That takes me back to the feeling, and then when I have the feeling, I can get that into the painting. So I mix up my practice a lot between painting, cooking, drawing. Often those small works I work on when I'm procrastinating. So that large work behind me, when it went through its really challenging stage, instead of just being inactive, when I needed to let it sit for a while, I just worked on my smaller works. And all the time I'm kind of doing little side looks at it, thinking, what does it need? What does it need? And I have these funny techniques of working out how to look at it with fresh eyes. So I might turn it upside down, or I go to my washing up sink and turn around really quickly, or, you know, the weird little techniques of trying to see it with fresh eyes. And then, you know, really, then I can almost know what it needs after I've done that. So, yeah, so but I'm always making, pretty much. I'm cooking, drawing, painting.
Yeah, I love that. And of course, you know, today is the launch of Edible Abstraction, but I think that's going to be one of the great things for students lucky enough to enroll in the course, that they're going to have you right there, interacting in the community group and getting feedback and all of those things. So it's not just about watching, you know, several hours of video and just, you know, looking at your techniques. It's about having that relationship with you. And I was thinking to myself, you know, often it can be a bit of an expense and investment to these courses, but I've done several courses myself as a student in painting. And I was thinking, you know, from the 2 days to the 8 days, never have any of the tutors ever shared with me any of their techniques. I've never watched them paint. You know, it's all just been a big chat fest. And then after you've paid the money and those days are over, you can't even go back and rewatch any of that. So I think, that's also the benefit of these courses. And obviously I'm biased, but I think that's, important to remember that. But I just wanted to call up cookbook size work. So we're looking at can you explain what the inspiration was and describe this for those that may be walking right now?
Yeah. These works have this similar kind of feel and weight as a cookbook, so they're same size, and so that's what I love about them. And it's so different working small to working large. My bench in my studio is the same height as my kitchen top, so I really do feel like I'm kind of cooking and using these kind of fine motor skills and using the ingredients, the colors around me. And it's very much a play, experimental kind of, feeling for the final thing. And so that one I made at the same time as I did a really big fig work. So I had this beautiful tray of figs from Marlborough sent down, and I did lots and lots of cooking with figs. So that kind of really rich raspberry red kind of came from that fig experience. But I like this work because it's got several kind of different paint applications, and I'm always wanting paint to surprise me, and it really did here. So you've got this kind of opaque splatter down the bottom left, and then you've got that translucent kind of a pinky color on the right, which almost feels like, when beetroot or raspberry, leaks into yogurt and makes this beautiful kind of pinky color. So it just feels really foodie, and it's got all different translucencies and different qualities of line and all the kind of lovely opposites that I want in a work. So yeah, that one worked, but there's lots that don't. Like I've got about 30 of that size and only a handful work. So this is just to demonstrate that it's a constant ongoing play and experiment to find something that works, and there's lots that doesn't work. And that's normal. So don't feel too frustrated when you get to the difficult stage, because it's normal.
Yeah. And I love that. And you kind of just do get that sense of wanting to rush to the kitchen straight away, and that we keep talking about firing up the senses, but it is a real sensory journey. And looks like you've already got some people enrolling, so that's exciting. We can't wait to see you. And yes, we saw beetroot.
Lovely.
And Ronnie's signed up. Seeing all of those beautiful ingredients and juices and all of those things just flowing in. And Jenny's having beetroot risotto for dinner tonight. So that's
fantastic. Yeah, it is such an incredible color, isn't it? Beetroot. Wow. Yeah.
It just comes back to, like, even watching you work with peeled banana skin, even if you're not going to spend time stirring all the risotto and doing all of those things, it was incredible just to see how simple things, and to work with, you might be preparing the dinner for the family and you're kind of like, oh, here we go again. But suddenly I think through a course like this, you've got then something else going in your mind, like, how can I use this? How can I respond to that later? And so all of that makes that exciting as well. Definitely.
Yeah. So part of the drawing, the experimental drawing, is responding to the sounds of cooking, and that's where the kind of art making comes in, and building your own visual language. And everybody has their own visual language. So, how you respond to onomatopoeia word of sizzle, bubble, flop, glug is going to be very different to how somebody else responds to, that word. And that's when your own kind of visual language and style will start to really come through, because you the way you're responding to those actions of cooking. And so, yeah, you're right. It kind of has another focus for when you're cooking. So I have a sketch pad in my kitchen, and I might have, a little pile of vegetable scraps for making a soup, or sizzling something, and I've been doing it for such a long time that I already have a vocabulary of all of those sounds, and so that I can refer to them when I'm painting, because they just naturally come out from those experiences of drawing and listening and paying attention.
And I think that is so interesting and valid, because again, like there's lots of people out there that paint a version of abstract, and that's great. And often it might be in response to a landscape. But then it can be hard to know where to start. But I think the way that you've developed this course is it does give people a way in that's accessible to them, because everybody can find some sort of food source and respond to it in their way. So there is then that unique journey for that student that is not going to be like everybody else's. And I think that's something that you do so beautifully, help people work out their own path. So
Yeah.
I was thinking, if someone's a little bit unsure about, okay, so how do I combine food and art? Do you have any advice that you'd say to help them get started about combining them?
Well, it isn't really a now do this and now do that. It's about you, as you say, like you responding and you finding your way through drawing. And so I think that one of the things people struggle with is like finding a composition and knowing, do I plan it or do I, and really what I'm showing is for it to evolve in a really organic way, that you're going to do these really cool experimental drawing exercises, and then you've already got a composition to respond to. And that's what's so cool. You're not really planning anything. You're just responding. And this is the thing, you're responding to what you've got in front of you in a sensory way. So those sounds in the kitchen, or those forms that you're drawing, and you're going to abstract them. And so then it will teach you those skills to abstract anything, whether that's out in nature or boats, or whatever you're going to draw it within a different kind of approach. And not, letting go of this kind of perfection and representational drawing as being the only way, because that kind of drawing is very different to this kind of drawing, because, that representational drawing is about hand-eye coordination. It's very much like you would learn to play the piano or the guitar. This fine motor skills that are responding to what you see in a very particular way. And it takes months to be able to draw like that in a really, really highly detailed representational way. And, part of me thinks, is that really creative? That's a kind of a learned skill, like playing the piano, like playing the guitar and reading music. And that isn't something you just pick up a guitar and you can play it, you learn it. And so I think often people feel like that I'm not a good drawer, but it's like, well, how much practice have you had of that kind of drawing? Whereas this kind of drawing, you don't need any practice. You just need to just be open and respond to something, which is fun and accessible. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was a real moment that I had watching you as well, because I kind of think, I like eating, particularly if someone else prepares it for me. I love that. But I spend so much time creating myself, I don't always, find time to cook something. So then I was thinking, well, how do these techniques relate to me, personally, if I wanted to use them? And it was great. It was great to discover that even though I'm sort of a nature-based artist, those techniques really came into play. And those techniques that you shared that I've been lucky enough to watch really helped me as an artist as well. So for those that kind of think, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, I can definitely say lots of those techniques helped, even though I've said that I was particularly a food artist, so that's great. So time has flown on here. And again, I encourage people to go to fiberartstake2.com and look at Edible Abstraction for more information. And there's also a video there that you can watch. So as we start to wrap up, I guess I wanted to just go back to that experience of what it was like filming in the last few minutes.
Yeah.
Was there a particular time that felt joyful or surprising, the experience of filming your course?
I loved it when you came into my kitchen, because that's my other really special place. And I get so much pleasure from feeding people and sharing what I make, which is, this art and cooking and painting are so similar. You're making something, and then if someone enjoys it, that's when the real pleasure kind of happens. And that's why I kind of look forward to the other part of this course, because I feel like I've been endlessly cooking and no one's tried anything. So that's why I really want to see whether people enjoy it or not. But I loved cooking for you guys in the kitchen. That was really fun. And going to the market. I shouldn't really give too much away, but I really enjoyed that part of it. My other really special place.
Yeah, no, I don't want to make it sound like there was just endless eating, because it was hard work there in filming. But anyway, yeah, I hope that lots of people get the chance to experience the course, because it really is remarkable, and we're so excited to. It's unique, and we're excited to bring it to everybody. And it's also the first painting course that Fibre Arts Take Two have done. So we're really looking forward to seeing how students engage with it and respond to it. So as we kind of wrap up for today, we'll just do our quick rapid fire questions. So
Okay.
if I were to ask you, every artist must believe.
Oh, in themselves, I think it's a good one, and that they can make work that they love. It's mindset is such a huge part of painting. It really is, and I think that kind of that self-belief is huge. Yeah.
So true. Every artist must avoid.
Ooh, comparison and jealousy would be my. They completely kill creativity. So it's so important to stay in your own lane and just make the best work that you can, and that brings you the most joy. And I learned that really early on, just to really focus on what I was making, and yeah, stay in your own lane would be my advice. Yeah.
Great words. And every artist must appreciate.
Oh, learning that it is endless, never, ever, ever ends, and you never arrive. And just the joy in learning. I know I've learned so much from other artists too, and I think that's really where the pleasure. And I've learned a lot myself just from doing. I've taught myself so much about painting and color, and so I think, yeah, learning is key. Always, always, always be learning.
Yes, and I hope that lots of people get the opportunity to learn with you, because it is really just special. Every artist can.
Oh, every artist can. I think every artist can be in that flow state and really make work that they love. It's so possible for everybody. I don't think that artists are special kind of people. I think every person is a special kind of artist, and it's there for everybody.
Yeah. And lastly, every artist must have.
Or just, I've said mindset before, haven't I? It's a tricky one, isn't it? Yeah, I think I just all those things I've said, really, just to have that kind of go for it attitude of just welcoming that learning into their life, and just have the pleasure of making art. Yeah.
Yes, I think you've demonstrated your passion, and that with you, people can find their way in. They can find their starting point, and perhaps in ways that they hadn't previously expected, and they don't have to even leave the house necessarily. So that's fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I better wind this up, and thank you everyone for tuning in today, those that have joined us live, and thanks for everyone for listening in the future. And please find us on fibreartstake2.com, or leave us a review, or share with a friend, as we'd love to spread the word about creative play and all things artistic. And if you can leave a comment or anything that you'd like to say to Nicola, that'd be great. We'd love to hear from you. So, yes, over to you.
Thank you so much for everyone that's joined today, and everybody that will listen in the future. To the really amazing Take Two team, it's just been such a pleasure to work with you guys. So gorgeous people, very professional, and I'm so excited about sharing the course and the next stage of the community. And it's just been a real pleasure, and thank you again for everybody that has joined and left a comment. Look forward to seeing you inside the course if you're joining up.
Yes, so excited. Thanks everyone, and thanks Nicola, and see you next time.